Maybe you could talk a little bit about some of those things that you do. You just did one this week.
Well,
Hearts of Gold, right? That
Hearts
was
of
this
Gold.
week.
Yeah, so we did the run walk, Hearts of Gold. It was a rainy Saturday, so it wasn't the most fun Hearts of Gold run walk we ever did.
But it didn't matter.
It didn't matter.
You were in it. It didn't stop you.
Right. So I was brought into that organization by the founder, this woman, Deborah Koningsberger, who it's her passion, and she's really, I mean, it is her work and what she does, but it supports homeless women and children, and that run walk helps build backpacks for back to school for the kids in Hearts of Gold. And it's homeless women and children in New York. And I mean, I just don't know, like, someone asks me to support homeless women and children, and I think I'm so blessed, and I have to even imagine having a hard time providing a backpack for the kid to go to school. I mean, how can you say, for me, it was just like, how can I say no, and I've just seen the work that she's done, and so I wanted to participate, and I think it's good for my kids too, to see what it's like to give back and to participate and see what that hard work brings, and that, life is expansive, and to help other people and interact with other people and be part of community, like we were talking about, I think it's really one of the most rewarding things. So it's nice to bring them along, and they have fun. So
They do, and
they enjoy it.
And they really. I remember one of the first things one of the few things that we've been able to do together, because as you know, I have 4 children and Amy has 2. When was it? It was, I think, shortly after he who shall remain nameless, Donald Trump, was elected, that we did the whole, more love, no hate. Like there were, maybe you can talk a little bit about that, how that came together.
Well,
it was for the march.
For the Women's March, yeah. So everyone was involved. Like every woman I know who was going to the march. We had buses organized and people were going, and then a friend of mine had a poster making party, and during that time I had a lot of roundtable discussions at my house.
Yes. Oh my gosh, how can we forget about that? That was awesome.
That was
community. That was connection. That was us all needing to come together and say, oh my God, what can we do? Like this has to be a time to wake us up.
Yeah. And I think we were all just so devastated that this person who was admittedly a sexual assaulter had been elected to the highest office in our country. And it was just shattering to think that we weren't going into a kinder, gentler nation, and we've noticed that we haven't. And
so it's almost like one of your core values was being threatened. Like now
kindness,
it's going to be really hard to live in a world that is kind. I mean, it's not that it was going to be hard, but it's going to take more. It's going to take more of the other things. It's going to take more connection. Coming together to boost the things that are important to us.
Yeah. But that's community that got people through that. I mean, I think the Women's March really solidified that we weren't alone, that our voices, we weren't going to be silent, and we were going to speak up for what we felt was right and feel empowered, and we were going to stick to kindness,
Yeah.
So.
Yep. And so that was a really empowering thing to do, and I think that.
I felt that the march was against Donald Trump, but it was also, in its most powerful, for something, and that what it was for is that we're women, we matter, our rights matter, we don't like to be grabbed by the beep. And then after that came the Me Too movement and Time's Up, and women saying, you know what, we're really sick of not being treated equally and not being treated kindly, and being treated like objects and not being listened to, and so it was time. It was definitely time.
Yes, and you really used your time to very well, and continue to support those causes. I want to talk about. I just want to hit back on what you said about. I can't remember the words you used, but I remember very well that we had given the kids some ideas of slogans to potentially use on their posters, because I mean, kids can sometimes be unkind, right? Because I think it's silly to like want to be out there and play around with how they express themselves, and we like gave them some good ideas of how to maybe express it. And my kids, and I'm not sure what your kids chose. My kids chose the slogan, "More love, less hate." So it wasn't about like down with Trump. It was we want more love. We want more connection. We want kindness. We don't want hate. We don't want hate. And so I think a lot of kids chose that, which I thought was really special.
My daughter chose "Save Our Sisters."
Yes, that's right.
Save our sisters.
That's what was authentic to her.
And she wanted to make that sign again recently, and I'm like, it was trying to dissect that, like save our sisters. Well, save our sisters from things that we don't want to have happen to them. And
right.
She, the kids knew what was going on. They know, like, they hear the tapes and they hear grabbing by the beep, and they know. I mean, my son cried for like 2 days because he was afraid his sister was going to get hurt with the election of Donald Trump, which is very sad and interesting. But
yeah, well, that opens up the whole question as a parent.
But where does he get that idea? I think it was from the vitriol that he heard on the television.
Well, yeah, and
everyone
talking about it too. Yeah. Like at a certain point, and this is I was going to say sort of launches into a core parenting conversation, like how do you have these conversations with your children. And because they do hear a lot of things out there, or they hear it. I don't know if your children watch TV and or just in school. Like I'm surprised sometimes at things that I hear in school. I was in the elevator the other day and I heard a dad talking to his kid, and he was talking about somebody who was being mean to him at school, and I felt for the kid, and I'm listening to the conversation a little bit, and the dad says to the kid, I don't remember the exact words, but it was something like he definitely said, you just look at that kid and you just tell him that he's a jerk or something like that. And I was like, whoa, were you going to bully the kid back? Like that's your strategy?
Yeah.
So you never know. You never know what other children are hearing, and so having open conversations about these things that are real for you, where you can share what's important to you, your values are with your children, I think is important. So how'd you talk to Nigel about that?
Well, it's interesting because I didn't have answers, and normally, like, there's been bullying instances with my children, and I've always said, the first thing you need to do is go to a grown-up, because children aren't capable of handling a situation like that on their own. They need
a lot of finesse,
Yeah, and you can't just stand up to a bully without bringing in a grown-up, especially at a young, and my kids are, at a young age. But I didn't have answers for him, and I said, that's when the march was really helpful, because I said, we're a country that believes it's based on democracy and the voice of the people, so we're going to go let our voices be heard and say this is not okay, and we're here and we're watching you, and there's power and power to the people.
So yeah, when I hear that, it's like you're just having a conversation with him about encouraging him to have his own voice in a kind way, and also in an intelligent way, one that as a child does include the conversation with a grown-up too.
Yeah.
If kids at that age, it's hard to negotiate that stuff on their own. So So, well, this is a good launching off point, I think, to talk a little bit about, so what are the things that in life will pull you away from living these values? Because we're talking about challenging issues that are coming up, where what we're talking about is what gets ignited right away is the value of our values, and how we're driven by them to live authentically those values and be living in the world through them. So there are, however, a lot of things that pull us away from that. Right?
Oh, yeah.
So we can either lean in and do the things that we're talking about doing, but we're human, we're not perfect. We absolutely both have moments where we're like not living that, where we slip.
Oh yeah.
Well, I mean, maybe you're perfect.
No. Oh my God. So far
I
from
never want to think I'm
so
perfect.
far from it.
Yeah. So, I mean, do you have sort of a sense of like, what are those things, whether it's a category, whether it's an attitude, whether it's, I don't know, compounding effect, an effect that will pull you away from your core?
Oh, and a guy yelling at me as I'm crossing the street will pull me away. I mean, like, everything pulls me away. And so my work every day is to practice, centering myself and not being overwhelmed by my thoughts and my feelings, and staying, hearing the noise but staying centered and true to myself. And so, meditation helps me remember that I'm not my feelings and I'm not my thoughts. Like, I'm bigger than all of that. And there's things like that. Just stopping to breathe and, remember to be true to myself. There's been a lot of situations that have come up where I don't feel that I know the way to navigate them right away. And so I have to really be still for a minute. Someone once told me, you've made the right decision when you feel serene. And
how you feel after you've made the decision?
Yeah. But
settled. It makes
settled.
sense.
But sometimes I'm like, serenity now.
Yeah, but it's true.
Straight from Seinfeld.
If you want yeah, daily, right?
No.
Daily. Yeah, we're confronted with those things on a daily basis.
Always.
Life is constantly bringing us challenges. Yeah, it is those things like the person yelling at you on the street or whatever.
I mean, all sorts of things can just send me off. I get an email
social media,
from somebody.
digital
social
stuff,
media.
Right? Social media. Oh my God.
And we call it triggers now. There's all these triggers, which is like a great word. That's kind of a new word in terms of our
It's
society.
a very yogic word. Like, what do you know? I mean, I think it's also a probably big psychology word. Like, you trigger, what triggers you.
Yeah, and I think kids use it a lot now, and
isn't that wonderful? Our kids are getting like more and more,
and they're attuned to what
emotionally
sets them off.
sophisticated.
Yeah. I think it's good. But yeah,
emotional. I mean, triggers.
I mean, there's some like millennial crazy things that like,
There's a lot.
I can't do that. It triggers me, and you're like, well, the point is not to say I can't do it because it triggers me. The point is to say this triggers me. Now, how can I continue?
Right. I love that you brought that up. It's
You know what I'm saying?
Such
There's
a great point.
It triggers me, so I'm out. No, it triggers me, so I have to breathe for a minute and sort of recalibrate myself.
Right. Well, because that's where strength comes in, right? When you allow yourself to be exposed to the things that are challenging rather than running away. Like we always say in yoga, like you don't meditate so that you can like sit in a cave and be happy. You meditate so that you can live more fully in this world.
Right.
So that when those things come to you, you can apply the tools that you have, that you know, to live more fully instead of pushing it away. I mean, it's one of aversion is one of the things that pulls us away in the yogic scriptures. Attachment and aversion, they're really akin. They're the opposite sides of really the same thing that pull us emotionally. So to be aware of them and to be able to move through them is definitely evolving.
Yeah.
And it is good that a lot of the things at school are now facilitating the kids to be more in tune with that, because this is the next generation. We want our kids to be able to talk about that. Right. Oh, I wanted to say, Pema Chodron has a really great, I think it's just an audio book called Don't Bite the Hook. And I love that metaphor.